Let's talk briefly about social networks, because if you want to release games commercially, if you want to build a business, or you want to be in touch with other developers, chances are at some point you will want to engage with people on some social network. Depending on the person, depending on the entrepreneur, you will hear that you have to focus on one channel or you have to try to be everywhere. As you could expect, reality is complex. There's no one way to handle things. You handle communication based on what you feel most comfortable with. Both approaches or a middle ground can all work. There's no one way to handle social networks. Then one thing that's dangerous is going to the social media sites themselves. Every time you log onto Twitter, you fall on the feed, and it's very easy to scroll down and to get lost into doing that. You can see I have a lot of notifications, messages here, because I don't go to Twitter itself most of the time. Instead, I'm using TweetDeck. So TweetDeck is a service provided by Twitter itself. You go to tweetdeck.twitter.com and you can schedule messages here. You can set them to release at a given date and time. It's an excellent interface, and you can customize the feeds that you get and have multiple columns to have everything visible at a glance. I have my user tweets always with, you can change the preferences by clicking the settings button in the top right of each column. With small media, I keep the media. This is just to check that I did not forget to post a picture in some of the messages. Then I have my mentions. I have a feed filtered down to only showing the mentions. These are like messages for me, the messages I want to see and sometimes answer. Everything else, I don't care. People will follow you regardless. You don't want to keep track of that, don't want to bother with that. People will follow you based on the content that you post. And so here I can like some tweets. Liking for me is a way of saying, okay, I read your message, or a way to say thank you. The like has little meaning to me, like or love on social networks. I have my personal messages, people to get in touch. So when I'm going to get in touch with professionals, I'm going to interview someone, for example, next week. I use Twitter messages to get in touch with journalists or people working in media in general, those kinds of things. Twitter is quite popular for that. One last tip, and one reason why I'm using TweetDeck in particular, is by opening the settings panel, you can clear the columns anytime. So you can remove all the messages, or you can mark them all as read, which is quite convenient, which you can't do if you go to Twitter itself, and the notifications kind of push you to go check what's happening. Same thing with the mentions. I can clear the column, be like, okay, it's a boring screen. This pushes me to get back to work. Sometimes though, I do go to my Twitter feed once, twice a week maybe, to check the activity on free and open source software and from fellow artists. And here's the way I handle it. I use the page down and page up keys to navigate, and so I'll navigate like that. And every time I find a picture or something I'm interested in, for example, this character, I know those kinds of things. I'll see Pablo Vasquez here from the Blender Foundation, or Christian who shares his Emacs configuration. Sometimes I'll stop, then I'll go down pretty quickly and stop on the tweets I'm interested in. I go back up, close the page, and I'm done. And that's enough to get all the most important news, because based on the likes that you put and the retweets, etc., your activity over time, it's pretty good at filtering or highlighting the news that matter to you. So I will always get, if there are tweets from the Krita Foundation, Darktable, Blender, those kinds of things, they'll tend to be up around the top of the feed, and then I will get more art work from individual artists. If you don't go to Twitter all the time, you really get the posts you are most likely to be interested in. So I recommend trying this out. That's some social network quick tips.